So, have you ever paused in an empty room, suddenly hit with that creepy feeling that someone was listening to a conversation you thought was entirely private? Think about your own hometown for a second, your daily routines, the people you pass every single day. Who is really paying attention? Well, let's dive right into this explainer of Michael K. Bender's gripping psychological thriller, The Listener. Today, we are exploring a picturesque, quiet small town that is hiding a massive, terrifying secret just beneath its surface. Now, don't worry, we are not going to give away the ultimate climax or spoil any of the book's crazy twists. Instead, we're going to break down the deep psychology, the mounting suspense, and those fascinating character dynamics that make this story literally impossible to put down. It's an absolute masterclass in tension, and honestly, it's going to make you rethink how much of your life is truly your own.
We're starting with this profoundly unsettling quote from the book, which perfectly sets the tone for our journey. You know, a lot of thrillers rely on loud, explosive action to get your heart racing, but this story, it flips that convention entirely. It actually weaponizes the quiet moments. It forces us to really consider the psychological weight of silence. Because in a town where someone is always monitoring you, silence isn't peaceful at all. It's calculated. It's that tense, breathless pause of a predator just waiting in the dark. This brilliantly establishes a whole atmosphere where every single sound and every deliberate lack of sound carries an immense, terrifying weight. Let's jump right into Part 1, Return to Ashford Hollow. Our entry point into this claustrophobic little world is our protagonist, FBI profiler Mara Williams. She's returning to her childhood hometown after 12 years away. You see, Mara actually listens for a living. Using her highly trained forensic skills, she studies the most dangerous men imaginable. But to really get her character, we have to understand this concept of clinical distance. This is basically the psychological armor that allows profilers to deal with the darkest parts of humanity without losing their minds. It keeps them safe. However, as the book masterfully explores, this same clinical distance is a massive double-edged sword. When you spend your entire life observing people from a safe, professional boundary just to solve puzzles, rather than truly connecting with them, you can become dangerously detached. And worse, it can make you completely blind to the threats standing right in your own backyard. Which brings us to our second section, 2 kinds of listening. The entire novel balances on this terrifying central metaphor, the huge contrast between listening as a structured profession and listening as an unhinged obsession. The book sets up 2 total opposite character archetypes. On one hand, you have Mara, who represents boundary-driven, distant, professional observation. On the other hand, we meet the beloved town handyman, Martin Shaw, who represents invasive, boundaryless fixation. Think about this in your own life for a second. Who do you naturally trust more? The cold, analytical professional who keeps you at arm's length, or the warm, helpful local guy who fixes everyone's porch, brings soup to the elderly, and has a built-in excuse to be inside everyone's house? By playing these 2 types against each other, the story builds incredible intrigue and really forces us to question our own biases about who we actually let past our front doors. And that leads to Section 3, The Missing Women. Just as Mara is trying to settle back into small-town life, the quiet facade of Ashford Hollow is completely shattered by an escalating mystery. 2 isolated local women inexplicably vanish, and the timeline is tightening. On September 4th, Dana Pelter disappears. But it's the details she leaves behind that ramps up the tension. Her dog is found tied up outside the hardware store. For any investigator, a disrupted daily routine, especially one involving a pet, is a visceral, massive red flag. Then, just weeks later, Joelle Marsh disappears from a dark parking lot after closing up the local bar. The timeline is compressing. The atmosphere shifts from mildly uneasy to completely suffocating as the town slowly realizes a predator is actively hunting them. Now, crucially, these aren't random accidents or runaway cases. The story presents us with terrifyingly clean crime scenes, no bodies, and absolutely no signs of a struggle. This points to a concept known in profiling as total geographic familiarity. I mean, what does it take for a predator to know the blind spots of an entire town? They have to know exactly where the security cameras aren't, exactly when the parking lots are unobserved, and precisely when people are the most isolated. This level of environmental control means the threat is definitely not a stranger just passing through. It's highly organized, methodical, and operating with chilling comfort right under the town's nose.
This brings us to Section 4, Building the Profile.
Faced with these disappearances, Mara just can't help but slip back into her FBI mindset. She starts treating her own hometown like an active crime scene. When we break down the traits of the unknown subject, the unsub, the resulting profile creates this unbearable cognitive dissonance. The traits point directly to someone who is a local resident, highly organized, and most importantly, possesses a built-in reason to be anywhere without drawing a shred of suspicion. Imagine the psychological horror of meticulously building a profile of a monster, only to realize it perfectly matches the most universally trusted, beloved citizens of your hometown, the people you've literally known your entire life. This leads to a fantastic psychological insight about how predators actually use normal social conventions as camouflage. The perfect cover isn't hiding in the shadows wearing a ski mask. The most dangerous individuals don't rely on clumsy, easily detectable lies. Instead, they hide in plain sight. They rehearse the truth so perfectly and so often that it becomes a flawless, impenetrable performance. It's the friendly wave. It's the casual small talk. The eager offer to help. The book masterfully argues that the most helpful person in your life might just be the one you need to look at the closest. Now for Section 5, The Archive Discovered. To truly understand the twisted logic driving the massive surveillance network hidden in the woods of this town, we have to talk about the clinical definition of erotomania. The book uses this real-world psychological condition to craft a terrifyingly sympathetic, yet entirely unhinged antagonist. Erotomania, you see, isn't just a crush. It's a delusional disorder rooted in an unshakable certainty of being loved in return despite all evidence to the contrary. Because of this condition, the antagonist constructs a private reality where bugging a town and listening without consent isn't viewed as a violation of privacy. In their mind, it's actually the highest, purest form of devotion and care. Wild, right? The narrative brilliantly lays out this terrifying theory of behavioral escalation. We see a clear progression from passive observation straight into active, violent control. Step 1 is the passive, town-wide surveillance, just quietly collecting secrets. But step 2 is a precipitating event, a disruption in the environment, like Mara coming home. This totally shatters the passive routine. Mara realizes that when a predator's delusion is threatened, they are forced into step 3. Active control and the elimination of obstacles. It creates the chilling realization that the missing women weren't random targets at all. They were just necessary eliminations to control the environment around one very specific, singular obsession. 11. I really want you to just pause and think about that number for a second. That represents the 11 years spent patiently building an archive of the town's darkest secrets. 11 years of secretly mapping daily routines, recording private phone calls, and just waiting. Imagine someone cataloging your every word, your every habit for over a decade. Emphasizing this time frame highlights the sheer, terrifying patience and obsessive dedication required to maintain such a massive secret while waiting for the trap to finally spring. The atmosphere in the story undergoes a massive, horrifying shift during the discovery of this archive. I mean, it's one thing for a profiler to investigate a crime scene from a clinical distance, but it's an entirely different kind of terror to find physical tapes and labels with your own name on them dating back decades. The discovery of a letter stating, "I know you're coming home," shatters any remaining illusion of safety. It proves that the investigator wasn't just looking at the past. They were the central target of a predator who had been actively anticipating their future all along. This explores the core thesis of the book through a profound sense of dramatic irony. Our professional armor can leave us deeply, personally vulnerable. The ultimate profiler, a woman whose entire career is based on identifying threats, failed to hear the one signal that had been broadcasting directly at her for her entire life. We can spend so much time building impenetrable walls in our careers, focusing on that clinical distance that we completely forget to lock our own front doors. And we miss the danger growing right in our own backyards. And so I leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider. What happens when the ultimate profiler becomes the ultimate prize? To discover exactly how Mara navigates the incredible tension of this psychological trap, you absolutely have to experience the book for yourself. But long after you finish it, you might find yourself looking over your shoulder asking, if someone secretly cataloged your every word, would it be love or would it be the ultimate violence? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay curious.